Hey there, welcome to the channel. Hope you're having a great day. This is Studio Visitor, the place where we talk about gear, philosophy and history. For this first episode, I'm visiting Peter at Finetune Mastering in Holland. Peter has quite some history and quite some impressive gear to talk about. My name is David Jones, I'm the Studio Visitor. This is yet another day, another story to tell. So let's make it happen. Peter, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Welcome to the channel.
Welcome in my studio.
Yeah, thank you for your hospitality.
Yeah.
It's a great studio. I think it's treated very well. How did you get to design this?
I asked help for it. Yeah, I studied. I went into the books about acoustics, but at some point I realized I need some professional help with this. So I searched for someone who helped me out with the design. He did measurements in the studio, measured that there were some peaks and dips, and designed for me the tube traps. Well designed.
Very clever.
Yeah, he already had some, but he calculated what to use and where to place them.
Just to your needs.
Exactly. Yeah, and I had the luck that is a room in a room. So
Yeah.
all around there's a hallway, and the rest is just storage room. So yeah.
It's a lot of air isolation.
Yeah. So the
Around it.
really low frequencies just get out, and I don't need to treat them for that.
How long are you with the room now?
Since 2003.
2003.
Yeah.
But how long are you into mastering?
30 years.
30
Yeah.
years. That's
Yeah.
a long way.
Yeah.
Have you seen change a lot of things through the let's take it to the last 10 years? Did a lot of change to mastering, or
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is machine learning. So I have a program called Isotope RX. It's something I use a lot for remastering, for restoring old recordings, and removing specific anomalies. Things that you want to have out of the mix, but you can do awesome things with it. And
it's magical?
yeah, that's constantly in development. I'm really amazed what it does, what it can do. For instance, there's
Track splitting is.
yeah, you can split up a full mix into bass and drums, and it's not perfect,
No.
and maybe it never will be perfect, but it gets better and better too.
True that.
Yeah, so for a customer, I isolated vocals so he could use them for a remix, and
Yeah.
I was really stunned, amazed by what he could do. Yeah, and that just goes on and on, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
but really, in basic mastering, I think it still comes down to EQ and compression and ears and your speakers, and that's the basic stuff.
Is it not also being one with the room you're in?
Yeah, oh, for sure.
I think that's one of the most underestimated values of mastering in studios in general.
Big time.
Is how you treat the room and how you become one with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that is so important. If you would ask me what is your most important equipment, it's the speakers. And just like you say, yeah, that's really important. Your relation with the speakers, being intimate with them. I would say you have to really get used to it, working with it, and it's also one whole with the room. So it's about monitoring and about reference, and it's the reference in your head, like having listened to many productions, the good and the bad, and if you have listened long enough to good recordings, good productions on your set of speakers, whatever they are, well, from a certain range, there's not really bad stuff.
No.
I believe, and if you get to know your equipment and with a lot of air miles, so to speak, or ear miles, with good productions, you build a reference in your head, and that's invaluable.
Talking about changes, how that physically changed your approach to mastering when it went from CDs and vinyl into streaming. Did that change a lot?
I call it a moving target. When engineers or clients are speaking about levels, you can say if it's for a CD, is it for streaming, and what kind of platform, and especially the platforms, they sometimes have these different references that they use. Is a minus 14 dB LUFS or 16 or 13, and the way I approach is just use your ears, man.
True that.
If it sounds, you really, if you apply a limiter to add the last bits of loudness, so to speak, maybe for CD, you just hear from, oh, now it starts to degrade, and you back off a little bit, and there seems to be a sweet spot in limiting level wise. But
does that depend on the song or the gear you're working with?
The song, the mix, I would say, or maybe even it starts with the arrangement even.
Yeah, true that.
I'll give you a funny example with that. I had a band, I won't call names, but no, it doesn't matter. It was a heavy metal band, more gothic like, and sometimes I ask. I don't do that so much anymore, but do you have a reference you use for your production or so? And they came up with Rammstein, and it was so different music, but I just played it, and I heard immediately, okay, Rammstein compared to their music was already one big block of notes, and Rammstein was produced so there was air in it, so it could breathe, and it was dynamic and loud, you know.
Yeah.
So it starts already with what instruments do you use, and then.
True that. What kind of preamps?
Yeah.
Where the mix is done.
Well, I think, to be honest, you can get a long way making your production in a laptop, but listen to it in a good room, where we started talking about. That would make a whole lot of difference, I think. And then, of course, you can take your mix out of your laptop into some analog gear. It won't change that much. I think sometimes it's overlooked. I want to be really honest about that. That sometimes gear is overvalued, maybe.
Can be, true that. Because mixing in the box in general is good. I mean, Andrew Sheps, for instance, is moving, had moved into the box. And he's really a great engineer.
Yeah, yeah. So if he does it, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, the setup is hybrid, but it's just a matter of preference.
The same approach. Yeah.
If there's one influence, or one influencer, or one man, or anyone in particular, or anything in particular that influenced you to do the job you're doing today, what's that?
I immediately have to think about who I call my mentor, is Peter Brusset. He was the owner of the company I started mastering with. It was called Gyraf. In 1990, I feel extremely lucky that I got to apply for the job he had for me, and that he had given me the chance. That first of all, he believed in me as an engineer. It was a gamble for him too, of course, having this young kid. In his 20s, and learn. I got to learn the job in house because. At that time, there was no education for that. It's so specific, such a niche market. Yeah. Yeah. So I got to train my ears in house, and So I learned the skills from him.
But did you came from nothing, or were you just a sound engineer that happened to be translated to a mastering engineer?
Well, it's never nothing. I was interested in music. I'm a drummer myself also. Yeah. And I remember him saying, oh, well, then at least you can cut to the beat. So if you need to make an edit, you know about it.
True that.
Yeah.
True that.
So that's an advantage, I think. And I have a background in electronics, which is also nice to have if working with electronic equipment. It can fail sometimes, or just a way of troubleshooting when something doesn't work, so that you stay calm and
Okay.
so that,
Good. Start at the power.
yeah.
It's the plug in.
And he trained me with you see, in the 1990s, we had computers, but the main work was done on the U-Matic system. So the first CD masters in those days. Oh, really? So maybe for the for the kids who are watching this or who don't know about U-Matics, it's an old professional video system, the predecessor of VHS. Well, never mind. It's digital digital tape. Horrible system in a way, but you need to have that system to make CD masters for the plant.
So the system was awful, but the quality was awesome.
Yeah, well, it was 16-bit for the CD.
But let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
If we talk about vinyl, some kids know. But if we talk about digital cassette, DCC, or DAT, that tape, yeah, it was all horror.
Yeah,
guys, we did that for you.
Yeah, it was. If the tape was playing, we really had fingers crossed if there's not a glitch or coming by.
But also the azimuth of the different tape recorders.
Alignments.
The alignment.
Yeah, we had Sony every other month or so aligning the machines, and it cost tons of money. It was ridiculous, but that's what you needed in those days.
Yeah, but in comparison to that from the past until now, the perception of time, distance, and file size is completely gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I was literally waiting for the courier bringing me that tapes, so I could master the track for someone.
Yeah.
And that whole process of transportation took about 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And now it's like 2-3 hours.
Yeah, sending masters to do abroad with UPS also cost lots of money and a lot of time. But well, if there's no alternative, people were more patient, I guess. Although in the industry.
Yeah, but our society got changed by social media, and that's what I meant by.
Yeah, and that sometimes I feel that is a downside. That the stress sometimes having to finish things in a certain amount of time, or that other people on the other side of the world are waiting for it. It doesn't use some stress.
Now you mentioned it also comes with the quality of the mixers itself, but also with the Loudness War.
Yeah.
By introduction of the LUFS system, most people thought it was over, but it's far from over.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, for a while it has been better.
Yeah.
But
well, yeah. I think the best maybe what has come out of it that it made people more aware of it. That there is something called dynamics, and that you can take care of that. But we are also used. Listeners are used to listen to compressed music, and I think somehow it got in our system, and people expect to sound things more squashed or so.
True that.
And there is a little bit of an explanation for that also, that listening with earpods or in traffic on your bike or in the car, which.
But it's also the perception of the human brain that everything that's louder is better.
Yep.
But it's not true.
If you take. Yeah, maybe some small advice for people getting into the business or mixers. If you compare the same track, say you compare your own work mastered and unmastered, please do it level matched, because if it's only half a dB louder or tenths of dBs louder, you would favor the louder one. It's just how the brain works. You get. Yeah, it's like it's going.
A career of 30 years in mastering. Tell me, we're talking about the good, the bad, the ugly.
Okay.
The best thing you ever did.
Well, I really feel honored to have mastered for Dream Theater. That's a dream come true. it's in the name.
That's the Eldorado.
Yeah, and I haven't worked with the guys personally, but I spoke to the guitar player on the phone. But even that started maybe 25 years ago, because it came out of my relationship with a company who got where Dream Theater is now brought under. And I worked for those guys inside out from Germany, and also it's now part of Sony Entertainment.
The worst thing you did?
The worst thing, what comes to mind is a band. Yeah, it's one of maybe the only band I really thought, and maybe even expressed like I did my work for them. It was a really loud dark metal band, and I've done a lot of metal stuff, but this was so. I remember days I did my work and they wanted it louder, and it was loud already. And they literally said to me, we want it to look like this cigar, one block of data or something like that.
No peaks at all,
no peaks.
Just one big block.
And I thought, why the hell do you want it to squash all dynamics out of it? So I made it a bit louder, and they took it home, and they called me and said they wanted it still louder. So, and I think I said something like, I don't want to do that. That's where my border was crossed, or I said it. Yeah.
It was very common in the past. A client could sit on the couch and was listening to what was happening, the magic that you did.
Yeah.
Is that still going on, or?
No, well, a lot less. It used to be 75% maybe that people would sit in on the session, and now it's maybe 10% or so, maybe even less. Yeah.
People are.
But it's twofold for me. I like to work alone because I can really focus and concentrate. On the other hand,
Me as well.
yeah, having the client over, the artist or producer specifically, they have a vision and they can help you to step out of your own box. So it's a different way of working, and it's fun also, of course. So it can be a little bit stressful, but yeah, I miss it sometimes. Yeah,
Can imagine.
yeah.
If you have to choose a single software application like Ozone or a plugin chain with only 3 plugins.
Tough question. Well, my first thought is then Ozone, because I think it has more modules than 3 plugins. But on the other hand, if you can choose. Oh, it's a difficult one, man.
I also have a YouTube channel. It's linked down in the description. It's called Dr. Plugin, and there are some exceptional free plugins that you can do a whole lot of work in. But if you're mastering in software, Ozone is a good choice.
Sure.
Then we go back again to the beginning of the conversation. It's all about the room, the speakers.
Yeah.
Speaking about speakers, we're going to talk about gear. Okay, tell me about the gear.
Yeah.
I'm looking at
A hybrid.
A hybrid.
Digital.
It's invented by Daniel Weiss. Tell me, the EQ and the de-esser, also known as compressor.
Yeah. I had to have these because when I got into professional mastering, or got to, these were just things to have. I don't know.
Expensive, not really affordable, but
no, but
to you a must have.
Yeah. So when I started making money and I started with some saved money, I just wanted to have those, and I knew that these were really a good workhorses, really ergonomically, and that's what I really love about them. Also compared to plugins, I don't want to work with mouse and screens all day long. So these are touch sensitive, so it's really ergonomical. And they sound, they sound awesome. They have a lot of nice features. This EQ, this is the first thing usually the music comes into. So my approach of my workflow is that I start looking or hearing for stuff that's sibilants, that's I'd say that jump out of the music, like bumps or resonances, exactly. I want to reduce those, so that's called surgical
subtractive
EQing. Yeah, subtractive. Okay, then it goes into well, sometimes I skip this one, but oftentimes it goes into this digital compressor, also by Daniel Weiss. Lovely machine, really workhorse. It can do a lot. Also, it can work in MS mode. And this one, the Mark III, has a parallel mode as well, so you can set it to work very strong, but then you add a little bit of that strength, and it can be handy to fill in some gaps, so to speak. That's how I approach it.
Okay, on to the next.
Yeah.
What's next in your workflow?
This is the first analog piece of gear. It's a mini massive made by Langvin, which is a daughter company of Manley. I remember one of the first gears I tried for myself was the Manley Massive Passive EQ, because it had a big name, good reputation. And it is an awesome machine, but somehow I thought I needed something else. But I liked to have something of that flavor in my setup, so I got to learn this unit, which is just a stereo 2-band EQ. So it has a low and a high section, and it can be switched to with overlapping middle frequencies. And the thing I like about this one compared to a regular EQ, so to speak, is it has an exciter kind of quality. You can bring out the metal of a right cymbal, for instance. It has a zing, a ring to it that I don't hear in other EQs. And it has a really beefy low end, really thick and warm.
Is it comparable to, let's say, an Apex exciter?
Yeah, a little bit. Really? Yeah, but mildly in an EQ flavor.
Yeah. I'm hearing some interesting features about this thing. What makes the difference for using this instead of a plugin?
Well,
is it the flavor? Is it the preferences of work?
It's the richness of the sound.
Okay.
I realize this can get sound a bit vague, but that's maybe what analog equipment is about.
Are these transformer balanced?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what the amount.
Oh yeah, that's funny. I have a ventilation hole here where I can reach the back of this unit, and it has a switch on the back where I can switch on and off the transformers. And you have two transformers modes also. You have a vintage mode and iron mode.
The Fairman.
Yeah, Fairman. Maybe I can go back in my. Well, before I had this one, I had a Crane Song STC8, which was also a lovely compressor, but yeah, I wanted to have something with tubes, I guess. And this one has a tube pre-stage and end stage. So the gain reduction method is not a tube, so it's not a vacuum, it's optical indeed, but it has tube pre and end amps, which and you can really play with it, just like a guitarist uses his guitar amp sometimes. If you drive the input louder, it gets more bright and aggressive sound, and if you reduce the input a little bit and use a little bit more output, and then you have the more warm, saturated tube sound. You can really play with the in and outputs to change the color of the sound. I use this one after the digital compressor, and they all do a little bit of gain reduction, maybe half a dB, 1 dB.
It's like serial compression.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so.
The Knif Soma.
Yeah, also tube in and outputs. Yeah, it's just a beautiful EQ. With subtle richness. It doesn't really change the sound a lot, but I could say it's really forgiving. Which can also be dangerous, because you can really apply 8 dBs and think, well, okay, it's still okay, but you have to be careful with that.
Is it like, is this 8 dB?
Yeah, sometimes really have that. Yeah. And it has MS coding, and it's so handy because in the Weiss you have to go into the menu a little bit, but this one has just 2 switches, and you can switch immediately to MS.
It's still the power of analog tuning again.
Yeah, and apart from these 4 bands, you still have a high pass and low pass filter, which also in MS can be used for instance, for vinyl masters. So you can have in the side channel just do a high pass filter on 30 or 50 whatever hertz and play with it. Yeah, lovely EQ. It sounds rich and also workhorse. So in general, the Weiss I use more for cutting frequencies, and this one is more for adding things I miss. So adding flavor, so to speak. Yeah.
That's what most engineers do. Subtractive, compression, additive.
Yeah. Yeah, in that aspect I can also say that, which is maybe typical for my workflow, that I like to have to add low frequencies after compression.
Yeah, because there's no sidechain filter in the compressor to avoid.
Yeah, some compressors have sidechain low pass filters. So the compressor doesn't react too much on the low frequencies.
Yeah. So final part in the chain is the Gyraf by Gyraf Audio, Jacob Erland from Denmark.
Yes. Yeah. It was probably about this strange unit with a beautiful. What is it? It's a multi-band limiter, one could say. It can be used for a tape saturation emulation, but it has a full band sort of limiter, which adds a little bit of saturation, tape-like saturation maybe, and it has the same thing divided in 3 bands. So you can use combination of full bands and 1 or more single bands limiting, and it has a warning: use with caution, and that's really true, because a little bit goes a long way, you could say. Another interesting thing about this one is that it has no mains. It really runs as a passive unit, so the energy that is being limited just goes into the coils of the meters actually. So there are no light bulbs in it, but they move sometimes if it's adjusted.
About durability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's something I deliberately have on the end of the chain, and it makes a lot of difference how you drive it. That's what I spoke Jacob about. It's like you can use it like a dynamic EQ to reduce certain sibilance. And this unit is driven by a unit you can see. It's under the desk. It's a Roger Foote compressor, also a Swiss Army knife compressor. Yeah, it's strange. With this Weiss unit and the analog compressor here, and this compressor, I have about everything I need. But so I, just being honest, I use that Foote compressor mainly because of its transformer output. It's a Class A transformer that is just switched on all the time, and it drives this one as the last thing.
Okay, talking about the speakers.
Yeah.
Man, really, I love these. I remember back in the days I was at the IBC convention in the Rye in Amsterdam. At the end, one of the product engineers said, "You gotta listen to this." He said, "This room is not actual representative for the sound quality, and you got to avoid the reflections." So I'll listen through it.
Yeah.
And the small packages, I think the A14 or the M14, and I was listening to at an exhibition. I was like, "Wow, I'm silenced." Really, such small packages and such detail, such quality. That was the two-way system. But here you got the three-way system. Tell me.
Well, it's funny that you mention it, because when I tried these out in my studio, I think I heard them first at the dealer, Helios. And maybe I had the budget for a two-way or so. So I was interested also in listening to a two-way version. I also had tried DIN audio, PMC, but then the dealer said, "Well, I think he will have to hear the three-way also. If it's for mastering, come on, three-way. Yeah, no, okay, well." So I tried it and I was blown away immediately and thought, okay, wherever I get the money, I will buy these.
Get to break the bank.
Yeah, we spoke about gear. Actually, this is the most important piece of equipment you have next to your ears, and the rest can all be done in various
The funny
ways.
thing about these speakers is all modern speakers and DIN audio was the first one that had DSP on board.
Oh yeah, yeah.
These things are purely analog, no DSP on board. Besides the fact they're pretty well engineered, I think that's what makes them different than the other competitors.
Yeah, I just love the sweet spot of them, the broad sweet spot, not such a proximity effect, and it just sounds great. Well,
Some of these speakers, not this brand, but some of these speakers have a sweet spot 10 centimeters off and you're gone.
yeah, that's
But not this. That's what you pay for. Huh?
yeah, sure. A piece of equipment that belongs to the monitoring system, I could say. It's the final step, the finishing touch, I would like to say, in the acoustic treatment of the room, if you can call it that. It's fine tuning in the fine tuning studio, you could say. Yeah, and the important thing to mention is that it's not only working in the frequency domain, but also in the time domain.
Yeah, one of the most underrated issues in room correction.
Yeah.
It's not only about frequency, but it's definitely also about time. Because especially with a three-way system, all speakers have different time travels.
Yep.
Okay, Peter,
Yeah.
now we've seen your gear and we know a little about your philosophy and your history. Is it all about the gear? The big question, the big debate. Is it all about the gear or is it something else?
Yeah. Answering the question is, is giving the answer, I think. No, it's not all about gear, of course. The most important thing is reference, the reference in your head, having listened to a lot of projections, knowing your speakers, your room, and then what you do with that information, you can do it with basically with any EQ and compressor. Those are the basic tools for mastering. And then another piece of advice I can maybe give to people who get into mastering and mixing also is if you don't have the money for expensive equipment, I think if the passion you put into it, going the extra mile, the clients will remember that. Because the most important or gratifying projects I've done are based on relationships I built with my clients a long time ago, and just going the extra mile, put everything into it, your passion, and it will be picked up.